welcome to my channel. So today I want to talk about being in purgatory and how it feels being in purgatory. Being in purgatory is basically when you're not totally suffering as much, but you're not getting what you want either. And it's like you can't complain, but you can't be happy either. And it's this place where I feel a lot of us probably have to go through if we were in the journey of manifesting something or this destination or this feeling of fate going to places. Um, and I think it is a phase and definitely an initiation process that everyone has to go through because I remember reading The Alchemist book a long time ago by Paul Coelho. Is that how you said his last name? And I remember, like in the journey, there is a bit where the hero in the story, basically stayed in this glass store or glassware store for years and years, and he kind of forgot about his journey and his destination and where he needs to go. And it wasn't until like almost maybe like 11 years he was there, and he was just there trying to be the best salesperson ever before he remembers that he needs to keep going with his journey forward. And I thought to myself, wow, he wasted a lot of time there. He wasted a lot of time just being a sales assistant in this random ass shop basically. And it was such a random storyline that was embedded into the whole book, and for some reason like that stick in my head for, and I'm thinking, because I only remember a few bits and pieces from that book. And the second thing that I remember is maktub. Maktub is a principle of basically saying everything is already written. It's like destiny and fate and stuff like that. But those are the thing that I picked up from the book. And now I'm thinking about it, I am thinking from the point of view of, I think that's purgatory, where you can't see any progress. I think you hit a wall, but the wall is just also like in your mind as well. And it's also like a metaphorical wall, but it's also a literal wall, because you can't really go beyond that point. It's as if that this is as far as you can go, and you don't know whether the journey is going to keep on going, though, or that's where you're going to settle down for years and years. And also, like I think in the story of Abraham, is it Abraham or Moses? Or Moses, where they basically just go around in circle for 40 years. I think that's their purgatory, right? Like for 40 years, you're basically going nowhere in circles. And then suddenly one day they probably decided, oh, well, we're just going to decide that this is it. This is the promised land and we're going to settle here. Um, and I think from the storyline, if I remember, it's not that far from their starting point. Um, so for 40 years, they're basically in purgatory, or like that's part of the storyline of that particular journey. And I feel like we have this in our lives as well. And I just watched a Korean drama that triggered this particular concept, because there is this guy. So it's just like it's just starting. So it's just only 2 episodes, and there's this guy that got demoted from his department where he works, and he has like connections with the higher ups, but he's not abusing it per se. His higher up is basically his relative, and the relative basically told him, you know what, just go to this department and it will be your purgatory. That's the way it was translated in the drama, like the English translation. I don't know the literal writing on that has to be said. Like I didn't know the script, but that's the way it was translated in English. Being sorry guys, I had like 3 cups of matcha and 1 liter of hojicha today, so I'm running out of breath because my body is overdosing on caffeine. Don't do it, don't overdose on caffeine. And yeah, so the relative was basically saying, "Oh, yeah, just go to this apartment and it'll be your purgatory." And that kind of made me think, yeah, that's where you're going to end up being when you're not really sure where you need to go the next, like for the next leg of your journey. And you're just gonna kind of float around aimlessly and drifting in your world until you kind of decide, like, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to be, or this is where I'm going to settle down. It's like until a decision is being made from the inside, that purgatory place will never end. And I think in the past, I would definitely thought that the purgatory will only end if someone else decide for me, or when something out of the ordinary happens, like, either a misfortune uh, or a fortune, basically, either one. So one kind of drags you down, and the other one is gonna lift you up. But yeah, until those things happen, I thought I will always forever here. But I think it only ends if you decide that it ends. So it's your decision to end things when it's in purgatory. For it, I know that sounds really silly, but I think purgatory at the end of the day is a self imposed exile or a self imposed prison that you put yourself there, maybe to compensate for something, or maybe to, if you read manhwa, if you read comic books, like Asian comic books, like in manhwas or murem world, which is like a martial art world. In the comic books, there is this uh, concept of self isolation training. So usually martial artists would pick a period, maybe a year or 2 years, where they go to isolation just purely to train. And maybe it's like, I think this still exists as well in the real world here, where we go to retreats for 3 4 days, basically just either do meditation or do yoga. But usually in this day and age, we do it with other people. But in the comic books, usually the martial artists world, they would go somewhere and isolate themselves, being a hermit, and meditate or train their martial art somewhere in the mountain for like decades sometime. um I feel like that's purgatory. I feel like that's when we are like, that's the cocoon part of our story. That's where you go from, not a centipede. I don't think centipede is the right. I forgot what the phase before you go become a butterfly. When you just like a worm, like, the little bug, and then you become like, and you go into a cocoon and you become soup, and then before you know it, you transform into a butterfly. And that period just between when you are inside your cocoon, beside your soup of metamorphosis, is purgatory, because it doesn't feel like it ends, but at the same time, like, you don't feel like the new is coming, but you definitely feel like the old is being destroyed. So you're stuck because you can't go back to the old, but you can't go to the new as well because it's not there yet. So you can't step out from wherever you are. um so I feel like that's what purgatory is. And I think I mentioned this before. When you are in purgatory, sometimes it feels a lot worse than when you are in hell, per se, because in hell, it's like a lot of things are happening. So your brain is basically highly stimulated, and sometimes it can be hyper stimulated. So there's a lot of action going on, but it's not like that when you are still going through it, because you have to keep your mind opens for the next stage, but the next stage is not here yet. So you just have to kind of like make sure you're keeping sane. And I think the period usually ends when you stop waiting for the new to come. Usually it ends when you accept that this might be forever, that this might be the only thing that is. This is going to be as good as it gets, but it's also going to be the worst, as bad as it gets. So And maybe one day I figure it out how to escape from purgatory, but I feel like the fact that I have this realization may be sign of its ending and going to the next phase, maybe. And the steps, I think, especially as I get older, is becoming slower and slower because when I was younger, I feel like, when you're growing up, things from one phase to another becomes really quick. Like, your third grade and your sixth grade probably differ. Yeah, the experience probably differs so much. And your sixth grade with your ninth grade is going to be like so, like, you know, like sky and ocean. They're gonna be so different, like the experience. And middle school and high school is so different, right? But when you're an adult, like sometimes your 30s doesn't feel as much as different between your 40s. There's a slight difference, but it's not much. And I think that's when you become aware when things are starting to shift because a small shift is felt while before a small shift probably cannot be felt. And I think the purpose of purgatory is to stop us from putting like the future as in a pedestal. Also, it's kind of stop us from putting the end of the end destination as on a pedestal and to not see it as this final journey. It kind of like reminds us that wherever we are is our journey, is our experience. That's what needed to be experienced to the fullest. We should not rush to go anywhere. We should not have this idea that here is better and that is worse. And wherever you are, it is the best that you can have. And of course, like some other people, purgatory probably similar like me is being chronically ill and not sure what's going on and having to juggle like some people's purgatory probably very short, like 2 years, 3 years. Some people's are like me, like maybe a decades, 2 decades, and it just doesn't like no nothing shifts. You just go in circle over and over again. And so like we all go through different experiences, but everyone knows that feeling of stagnation of nothing is improving, and it's really hard, especially if you're surrounded by other people and their life is just keep on improving and keeping from one like of their journey to another. And some people, for example, is already being a grandma at 41 years old while I haven't even have like one child. Not that I want to have a child, but you know what I'm saying, like it's just a very different journey. And I think being purgatory can also be a blessing because after a while, because there is a lack of progress, you just stop seeing or hoping about the future, right? And you just focus on the present. It's more like being a horse with a blinder on. You just like, okay, let's just focus on what we have right now in front of us and kind of pull back that future mentality and bring it back to the present moment. And I think it's when you stop wishing that things improve or when you stop wishing that things will change. I think that's when your definitions of a purgatory becomes this is just life. And it doesn't feel like a purgatory. It feels more like every day. And every day there's always going to be something good and there's going to be something bad. But and I think this is the key. It's more like a paradox. Once you get to that stage, I think that's when your story starts to shift again and move forward. And your time, your clock basically that has been frozen for the longest time, being in this phase of your life, starts ticking again. And you notice like things start slowly coming together, things slowly coming to you. And but because you have accepted that maybe like things may not progress, you don't really pay attention to it. You just accept it like one thing at a time. There is no expectation of this dramatic change or for the future to become so much brighter and better. And that's a paradoxical thing, right? When you accept that you are in this place that you there is no progress, that's okay. that's when progress starts to happen. And I think it works with a lot of things in the world as well. And I know, like, if you know Abraham Hicks and his teaching of law of attraction, when she said things like, you just have to move your attention somewhere else. If things are not working out, then you need to place your attention to other areas in your life that are working out, and not pay attention to the things that aren't working out. And I think this is the key as well, to kind of shift yourself from purgatory to progress, is to focus on the things that are working out. Maybe your work is slowing down and hasn't any progress, like you're not moving anywhere, you're not moving up, you're not moving down, you're not moving sideways. You just stay in one place. So maybe you need to shift your focus. Maybe you need to check out whether your family life is going okay. If this is going okay, maybe it's a blessing that your work life is stuck, because it's a steadiness and it's a stability where you can guarantee um, it won't go anywhere. So you can focus on maybe the chaotic family life. Maybe you have like 3 children under 5 years old, and you definitely need to focus there and for it to keep growing and keep changing. And having your work life being stagnant is probably a blessing, because you don't have to use your too much energy to improve it, so to speak. So I guess that's my take on purgatory. What do you think? Let me know. So yeah, thanks for listening to me rambly today, people. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video. I'm Valerie. I'm a solopreneur here on the internet. If you want to check out my shops, you can go to the description box below and see the links and check it out for yourself. I will see you later. Bye, everyone.